Hi, welcome back to the garage. I wanted to do a little video about my 85 BMW 745. The 745 was kind of the top of the line E23 chassis. This is an 85 model year, which is towards the end of close to the end of the run. The turbo cars, the 745 was a turbocharged 6. The later cars like this, BMW called it an M106. So turbocharged, intercooled, 3.4 liter, and BMW used the FIA multiplier for turbo engines. I think it was 1.4 to round this, what would have been like the 732, 733 up to 745, so for power equivalent of a 4.5 liter. This car was originally imported to California. It was CARB, so it's got a CARB sticker in it, which makes it much easier when it's time to smog and register. It was originally sold in a Netherlands destined car, and then it was brought over fairly as basically a new car. Technically, they were officially used, but it was minimal mileage. In the Netherlands, it seems that everything was an option because this is the most basic spec 745 I've ever seen. It has a sunroof, and it's got a rear window shade, and it's got air conditioning, but I think air conditioning was standard. No manual windows, cloth interior, and the side marker turn signals. That was for that market. And it's another thing, you don't usually see 23s with these. Cosmos blue cloth interior. Past owner put in a set of E23 sport seats, which are hard to find. The upholstery isn't quite right, and I have found the correct corduroy velour upholstery. So that will hopefully be this winter's project to reupholster those seats in the correct upholstery. Kind of holy grail of E23s, there's no cracks in the dash. 126,000 miles on the odometer. So when they were imported and federalized, the speedometer was switched from kilometers to miles. But that's been consistent since the car's been in the US. So I'll probably not convert this one back to metric since it's fairly accurate. This car has had a few things added on that you can see. It's got the BBS spoiler in the front, Zender spoiler in the back. I put on the M635 style TRX wheels because I think they look great on the car. The tires are available through Michelin Classic, and they're not cheap, but I think they look the part. And they're a 240/45 415 millimeter wheel in the Michelin TRX design. I'll bring the camera over and we'll do a little walk around, but this car has had a little bit of paint work. The story is it was keyed, so the sides have been repainted. The top surfaces are original. Things in really nice shape. Been owned by a few very enthusiastic owners who have great reputations, and I'm happy to be the next person to take care of it. This is in the pile that I would call the keeper. I've had a few 745s. They've all been pretty rough. And as I often do, I buy a really poor example and try to fix it up. And eventually, if I really fall for the chassis, I try to find the nicest one I could find. And this really was the nicest one that I could find out there. So let's come in a little closer and we'll get a little bit more. All right, let's take a look inside here. We'll go to the back first because this is the correct upholstery. The corduroy outside velour centers. Blue crank windows all around. The other thing, I guess, for this market, it's got different wood than you usually see in a 745. They usually have the burl walnut, so this is different. Yeah, so sports seats that are kind of beat up. They're pretty close to the right color in natural light, but I've got the right upholstery, so we'll get that taken care of. It's got a gauge cluster that was added in with an air-fuel ratio gauge. I've got an oil temp, coolant temp, and I'm looking for one more period correct looking gauge to fit in there and get that, all functioning. And I've put in a modern Blaupunkt vintage style radio, which looks like it belongs in there. So basically the M106 was a turbocharged version of the M30. The blocks had oil squirters for the pistons to help cool the pistons, a it's a KKK turbocharger, which we'll go to the other side and see that, but about 250 horsepower, very torquey, and kind of a different experience compared to a typical M30. Really smooth. It works well with the automatic. The nice thing with the automatic is you don't lose boost between shifts like you can with the manuals, or if you manual swap them. No intention of doing any real modifications like manual swap on this car. This one, nicely for whoever federalized it, put the repeater lights, the markers, in the molding instead of cutting a hole into the body. I've had both cars done both ways, and this is nice if you do want to delete that. It's not as big of an issue. The markers were missing from the front rubber. I don't know if the rubber was replaced or what happened there, but also the BBS spoiler, one thing to note, this is a correct 4745 spoiler. It's got the vents down there, which should basically feed to a duct which blows air on the turbo. It's not very high tech, but it's ductwork to blow air to help keep airflow around the turbo. There's also a blower that runs for up to 5 minutes after you shut the car off if the car is hot enough. And again, that is just blowing air onto the turbo to help cool it down. So this has kind of an early version of a sport wheel, leather covered. Works well with the car. It fits in nice, 100-liter fuel tank, so long range for road trips. Pretty much this is, I think, how your typical 745 came. They were a top of the line car, so a lot of options were standard. Switchable automatic. When you put it in sport, it does hold the gears a little bit longer, and I think it locks out overdrive, so it feels more responsive. Why don't we start it up here? Just your typical BMW kind of sewing machine Big Six sound from the front. There is a little bit of an exhaust leak at the rear muffler, which makes it sound pretty good. So I haven't been too eager to fix it. But just super nice car, great for road trips. I've taken it on a few rallies. This one is definitely a keeper. There was another 745 made for the South African market because the turbo engines didn't work with right-hand drive, and they used the M88, which is basically what came in the Euro M5, M6. Actually, we got something similar back here. It doesn't belong to me, but it's being stored here. This is an S38. I think it might be for sale. But basically, 286 horsepower, straight six. I built a car, a 728, with one of those engines, and it was a really nice car. Unfortunately, sold it. It was tuition time of the year where I had to pay a couple of my kids' college tuition bills, and the car had to go. That's one I would like to get back, and the current owner knows it, so maybe someday. But that's it for now. This car doesn't really need much. I just enjoy it. Seat upholstery hopefully this winter. I'll check back if we get that done. Oh, and it does. I have a new BMW windshield to get put in at some point soon, because it does have a couple of pretty nasty chips in the windshield. But yeah, so that's the 745.